Hello and welcome to this tutorial looking at creative cycles. Here we're going to unpack exactly what we mean by a creative cycle and look at it in relation to a student's portfolio of work. Now this portfolio of work actually got a level 9 at GCSE, which is exceptional, so it's a really high standard. But everything we're looking at here applies to A level as well, because we're looking at the content, we're looking at the structure of the project in relation to the creative cycles and the best practice within it. So within the creative cycle itself, we start by highlighting the artist and the technical focus. So obviously you'd have a theme to your project, and what you would actually then go and do is say who you're going to look at and why in terms of, again, a technical focus. We then move on to the analysis. Now there's another tutorial video looking at 1, 2, 3 analysis, which I encourage you to watch. We then move on to the statement of intent. This is where we say exactly what it is that we aim to do and how. We then go on to the planning. There will be an element of planning. We do need to incorporate drawing within that now within the new specification for photography. And then there'll be the contact sheet or your initial ideas. So these could be in sketches if you're an artist. There's then a section on choices. You need to explain, which images, which ideas are you going to carry on with and what are the reasons behind these choices. There then should be your edits or your actual artwork. Some kind of a how-to guide. This will be your annotation. This will be you explaining exactly what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it using the 5 Ws. We then go on to some kind of development. Now, this may be in Photoshop if you're a photographer, or it might be some sort of experimentation that's shown in your sketchbook if you're an artist. But we do need to see that deep development. We need to see the idea growing. And this will lead us to the final images. This will be the final work of art, or in photography, it might be your boom moments, where you're showing your photography on its own on a nice empty slide so that we can actually have a good look at what you've been making. The last part here is a review. Now, this might be an evaluation, it might be a SWOT analysis, it might be a Venn diagram, so a comparison with your original photographer's work, because of course you would have done everything in the style of your artist you picked. And this concludes the cycle, and so then you've got a choice. You could change the artist or you could change the technical focus and you continue with the same ideas and you keep going around this cycle. Or it might be that you move on to the next cycle. It might be that you move on to a really quite distinctly different artist or a different technique, a different focus, okay? Now we can actually attribute grades to these processes as well. So if you have one cycle, i.e. one artist, one technical focus, but you look to develop that maybe 3 times, you might look to come up with 3 lots of photography, for example, or it might be that maybe you change the technical focus as you go around, you're likely to get a grade C at A level or a level 5 at GCSE. If you was to do 2 cycles, okay, so you pick a completely different artist, a completely different technical focus, in addition to the first one, same theme, same project, but a different artist, different focus, then you could be getting yourself anywhere between a level 5 and 6 at GCSE and a C and a B at A level. If you go on to a 3rd cycle, you're likely to get more like a 6 or a grade B. And if you create the grand finale, okay, then you're likely to get a 7+ or a grade A at A level. The reason why is that the grand finale, and we show it as this sort of bullseye here, you're going for the bullseye of this dartboard. The reason why you would get such a great grade is because the grand finale is a combination of the very best of the first 3 cycles coming through to a grand finale. It's a celebration of all of your learning, it's a celebration of all of your ideas. So what we will do is we'll have a look at how this works within a student's portfolio of work. And what I have done, I've created this sort of sticker that I've stuck on some of the slides I think really show this in detail. So this student's looking at rural and urban sceneries. They have an introduction. And they have mood boards. So we start talking in terms of creative cycle now. We need an artist one and we need a technical focus. Well, they're starting to look at artists, aren't they? They're starting to look at technical focus. So mood boards and mind maps can be a great way to show that. Here we can see the mind map, clearly unpacking, starting to think about different ideas, starting to home in on what this technical focus might be. We then start to move into the analysis, okay, the 1, 2, 3 analysis. So these images are being unpacked from the mood board and the mind map, and there is some mini analysis going on. You can see the students starting to deconstruct how composition is being used. And this follows on through to a statement of intent, students saying quite clearly what it is that they're looking to do within their project, and into their analysis, okay? So if we have a look at our cycle, look, we've got the statement of intent, okay, and we've got the analysis. So these are interchangeable. You know, you might change the sequence of the cycle. It's a guide, remember. It's about trying to get as much of its content in as possible. This here is the 1, 2, 3 analysis. There is another tutorial looking at 1, 2, 3 analysis. I suggest that you do watch it. And you'll notice that this student has decided to put all of their analysis at the beginning of the project rather than putting each analysis within each cycle. Again, it's up to you how you wish to present the work. So we move on to cycle 1. Nice clear heading, making it clear it's cycle 1, i.e. we're signposting to a moderator that you have more than one idea. There will be more than one cycle, okay? And so we're kind of moving into the planning here. We have indeed got a plan now, okay? So we've got the planning going on, and then we've got the contact sheet. So these are the initial photographs that have been taken, and we're showing them in detail. We've then got some more analysis. Now, we've not gone back. What the students now doing is this is actually starting to move into sort of a how-to guide. They're explaining what they've done and how they've done it, but they're presenting it as analysis. So it's not just annotation. This student's really getting to grips in detail with exactly what they've done, how they've done it, and why they've done it. And then we have the boom moment. So we start to work our way around this wheel, and we're at the final image now, okay? So we've gone through a statement of intent, we've had some planning, we've had the choices, we've had some explanation of what's been going on, we've had some editing because that was being explained, and then we come through to the final images. Some further explanation, another boom moment, further explanation, boom moment. So you can see that again, this notion of having ideas within the cycle, this student's quite clearly going round this clock within this creative cycle because they keep coming back to these how-to guides and developments and then coming to the final images. So they're revisiting ideas. They come up with variations of their ideas within the same creative cycle. Another boom moment. Now, if you do want to bring your images together to show everybody what you've done, that's absolutely fine. I think that looks great. But do remember your boom moments because it's nice to see your photographs in all their glory. Okay, so we're moving on to cycle 2. And again, as we said, what we're looking for is the same project, so it's still looking at rural, but now it's framing look. So there'll be a new artist and there's a new technical focus. That technical focus is framing. Same project, looking at it from a new aspect, therefore a new creative cycle. It gives your project structure and it allows us to see that you've got more than one idea. But you'll notice that the elements within the creative cycle structure are being followed. So we're onto the statement of intent. This is quite nice, linking framing to my rural theme. So again, signposting, this isn't a new project, this is the same project, just a new way of looking at it, a new creative cycle. It's still linking to the original theme. We've got the planning going on in terms of mood boarding and mind mapping. And now we're on to the analysis. So this is the student's own photography. So we've got the contact sheet, we've got some choices because there's some explanation going on. It's also saying how different processes are being applied. So actually starting to move into the edits now as well. So of course these items could be on the same slide or within the same page within your sketchbook potentially. A couple of boom moments. How-to guide, explaining how things are being done. Boom moment. Then we move on to cycle 3. And you'll see the same process happening again. We've got some mood boarding and mind mapping, leading us to cycle 4. So that cycle, by the looks of things, wasn't fully completed. We've actually got a 4th cycle coming through now. Contact sheet, analysis, explanations of what the student's producing. Boom moment. And this formula continues to be followed, as you can see. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come out of the presentation just to show you that the student, they did go on to cycle 4. They went on to a 5th cycle, look here as well. And then there was a development of the cycle 5. So students get more and more in depth. Now I must make it quite clear from the beginning slide that you do only need 3 cycles. If you want to go above and beyond, you can, but it's not necessary. You can get yourself a 9 by doing 3 cycles, because the most important thing, if you do want to get a 7 or higher, and in this case a 9, is that you do need to get to this section for grand finale. Okay, so we're going to look at this section in more depth, because what this section does is it really brings home to anyone who's looking at it, including a moderator or examiner. It really brings home exactly how the student has taken what they've learned so far and used it in a really personal and meaningful way. And this is how they get the top grades. Now, you notice straight away the quality of the presentation has really come up because this is the most recent work. There's an introduction to it. We've got the mood boarding, all familiar things. We've got the mind mapping. We've got a statement of intent. We've got our analysis. We've got the plan. So we're following this all the way through, look. The focus, the analysis, the statement of intent, the plan. We've got our images and explanations of the edits, so the how-to guide. And these developments and ideas are being explained the whole time, and it leads us to a boom moment. What a fantastic photo. Now, within the grand finale, what the student is then doing is really thinking about how they're going to bring these elements together. So the elements of the buildings that we saw before, the elements of using colour that we saw before, the elements of using framing that we saw before. These are all coming through now within this grand finale. And look, we've got some really interesting things starting to happen with these minimalist edits. And then an explanation starting to talk about it in terms of the colour wheel. And even going furthermore to now this new approach looking at colour. People might recognise this as the Grafton Centre in Cambridge. Students now really starting to think about colour, and the project's really taking its own direction now. Really personal, really meaningful ideas that are coming through by combining the ideas of the first 3 cycles. Further plan. And she started to talk about making it look more vintage. And then the project comes to a close. So what I will do, I just will quickly summarise why this candidate did so well. So they did get a 9, okay, at GCSE. They did create the grand finale. They clearly had 3 cycles. There's more like 5, but again, there's a 3 clear cycles. And the best of these parts, including the framing, including elements of colour, including the elements on composition, and more importantly, the architecture, was all brought through to the grand finale, where these ideas were put together. They were added together in a meaningful and skillful way, and so they produced a really successful creative cycle in the sense of the grand finale. But what they did do, even with the grand finale, is they followed these processes so that it was structured. We could see quite clearly how the students' work was progressing. We could see how their ideas were growing. We could see how their ideas linked to their artist's work. And we could also see where it led them to, okay? Their first idea wasn't their last idea. And that's the case within each of these cycles. Their first idea wasn't their last idea. It led them somewhere. And when they made these discoveries, they then asked themselves the question, what can I do next? What can I do with this? Well, how can I further develop this? And that really came through with the grand finale. There will be another video similar to this, looking at another example. Please do check out the other videos on the Samuel Ward website and also on the Prep Learning sites. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.